Night. Humid with a thunderstorm in the forecast for tomorrow, a high of 84. Currently partly sunny and 71 at O'Hare. Your next news update is at 9, and Chicago's Morning Answer continues next on AM 560 The Answer.
Now, from the Signature Bank Studios, America First with Sebastian Gorka, weekday afternoons at 3 on AM 560 The Answer.
All right, in case you've been living under a rock, you know that President Biden is not going to be seeking re-election. And there's some dribs and drabbles of information coming out, and this one I found very interesting. Biden has two younger brothers. One's named Frank. They call Frank the alcoholic. Literally, that's how they responded to this. But Frank spoke to CBS News and gave him some information.
CBS News had a brief conversation with Frank Biden, one of President Biden's two younger brothers, and here's what he told us. He said, "I'm incredibly proud of my brother. Selfishly, I will have him back to enjoy whatever time we have left. He is a genuine hero. Country over self. It sounds corny in our cynical political environment, but he nor I are cynical. The goal remains the same: defeat Trump and continue the work that Joe has done. My hope is that our party rallies around this heroic act." We asked him whether he feels that his brother's overall health and vitality played a major role in this decision, and he says, in my humble opinion, absolutely. So a member of the president's family now confirming that the president's health was indeed a major factor in this decision, and calling his brother a hero for making the decision to pass the torch to Kamala Harris.
So, Nancy, sorry. What time we have left?
Yeah.
Does he mean what time he has left in office,
Yeah.
or what time he has left on this planet?
I think he's saying the time in office.
Okay, because it sounded a little ominous.
Yeah.
And everybody's reacting. Everyone's wondering who's behind, who's the Wizard of Oz, who's the man behind the curtain. Well, is it Obama? But is it Pelosi too?
No, not more so than Obama. This is Obama's party.
With more on that and the tweet that was read throughout the world, let's welcome back to the program former Governor Rod Balgojevich. Good morning, Rod. How are you?
I'm good. Good morning, Annie. How you doing?
Good. Well, I was a little shocked when I heard the news yesterday. I expected it to be coming, then I wasn't expecting it. And where were you when you found out?
Well, I was at home, and I just put out a tweet moments before that Obama was pulling the strings and working behind the scenes in a classic old-school Chicago political way, the way the old political ward bosses used to do it, to maneuver and push Biden out of the race. And then suddenly the news came out that he actually got out of the race. So in some respects, that tweet I put out was a little bit prophetic.
Yeah, and you wrote that I've known Obama since 1995. We both came out of Chicago politics. I know how it works. He's behind the campaign to dump 15 million Dem primary voters and replace Biden with his choice. Classic Chicago Democrat machine politics. Selection over election. The bosses over the people. Now, is what he's doing and what they're doing, is that even legal?
Well, I think it very well may be. I mean, I would imagine, I'm sure the President of the United States, if he feels he's not capable of doing the job, can step aside. And the likely successor would be the vice president. But really, to me, it's not a question at all of legality. It's a question of honesty. What this shows is that Biden and the Democrats have been lying to the American people for a long, long time. I don't know how anybody can trust the Democrats after this. And Biden has now acknowledged that he's not capable cognitively to be the candidate, the Democratic candidate for president of the United States, notwithstanding the fact that 15 million Democratic primary voters voted for him. And that would suggest that he's not capable of being president. And he hasn't been, because this doesn't just happen overnight. They've been covering this up. And Kamala Harris, as his vice president, is part of a cover-up. It's been a conspiracy to cover up Biden's incapability of being president. And all of the Democrats who have been supporting Biden are complicit in this. And I think it goes back to fundamental trust. How can you believe these people?
That's true. That's true. Governor, what's up? It's John Anthony.
Oh, hey, John.
Hey, I'll never forget. I always tell people we were together the night of the election in 2020 when you stood up and said something's not right. They're getting ready to do something. When all of the voting counted, I tell people that story all the time because
When we went to bed and he
we
was
went to
ahead
bed.
in
Yeah,
in the polls.
yeah,
or
because
in
we
the
were together up until like
calculation.
1 a.m. that morning over at Mark Vargas's place in Chicago, and we saw it. And the governor, and that's what I always say, Governor Blago. You know some stories that I wish you write about and uncover what's really the Barack Obama and who he is and what he was. You guys know each other very, very, very well. But that's not my question. I just wanted to bring that out. Um, how does Kamala, if she's the candidate, how does she overcome the lackadaisical campaign, all of the things, the inflation? I'm talking about the border crisis. How does she overcome that as somebody who was the biggest cheerleader for the Joe Biden's campaign?
Well, I think she's going to have to run on his record, and she's part of that record. And she was charged with the responsibility to protect our border, secure our border, and that's the most glaring failure of the of the Biden administration.
You said it right.
I'm talking a little bit like Biden. I'm flipping.
No,
hands.
you're right
But,
because this is the third Obama administration. So go ahead.
yeah, I didn't mean it that way, but in any event, Kamala Harris was in charge of the border, and the border is a disaster. And over 10 million illegal immigrants have broken into our country, and they've taken the place in our society above, poor people who are living in, communities around America, disproportionately black. They're taking away jobs and tax dollars and all kinds of other things. And so she's going to have to answer to that. She'll have to answer to inflation and the foreign policy that has led to the breaking out of wars in places like Israel and Ukraine. And so she's going to have to be the mouthpiece defending Biden's administration, and she's been part of that as well. So the matchup between Trump and Biden is really not that different between the matchup between Trump and Kamala Harris. And then you got the factor that there's a Hillary Clinton quality to Kamala Harris, I think. And by that I mean the more you see her, the more you're kind of looking for somebody else to vote for. You know what I'm saying, John?
Oh,
Yeah, I do.
So, I know the pundits and the pollsters, the pundits are going to be saying all kinds of things. And, I'm not here to make any predictions because my predictions never seem to turn out right. But I think President Trump is in a very strong position, largely because of, he's been talking and leading a movement of the American people that didn't just start developing overnight. I think Americans across our country are increasingly sick and tired of being lied to. They're sick and tired of being told to believe things they know are not true. Now with Biden stepping out the way he has, after Biden, Kamala Harris, and the Democrats have been saying that he's more than fit to be president, exposing a big lie like that, I think that's actually going to even increase Trump's odds to win in the next election. And let's not forget that more than 70% of the American people think the country's going in the wrong direction, and Kamala Harris is part of the reason why the American people think that we're going in the wrong direction.
Were you surprised that Biden just wrote a letter, not even on presidential head stationery, and he didn't have a primetime speech making this announcement?
Yes, I would have thought that he would have done a speech similar to what Lyndon Johnson did back in 1968, March of 68, when he surprised the world. Johnson's decision to withdraw was a lot more surprising than Biden's, but he shocked the world. He did a primetime television address to the nation to say he was getting out of the race after Robert Kennedy had gotten in the race and after Eugene McCarthy had shocked the world by getting more than 40% of the vote in the Democratic primary. Of course, that's history from a long time ago. But no, I thought Biden would do something similar to what Johnson did. So the way he did this is kind of surprising, and I don't really know why, but maybe we'll learn more in the days ahead.
Governor, what do you think happens at the Democrat National Convention? Is it going to be an open convention? Because I think that's the one way you can get rid of Kamala and put one of the bigger names up at the top of the ticket. Will there be an open convention at the DNC come August?
I don't think so. I think the Democrats are stuck with Kamala Harris. I don't see how they can bypass the vice president, who's been endorsed by the president, who's stepping out, who happens to be a black woman. And you have to remember that politics in the Democratic Party is all about identity. And more than half of the delegates, I think, are black. And so bypassing Kamala Harris would be the wrong thing to do politically. And frankly, I think the wrong thing to do because she is the vice president. And that's sort of like the natural successor.
So what if they replace us with another black person, like a Hakeem Jeffries, Wes Moore, the governor, I want to say, is that Maryland? Who's the governor, Wes Moore? Another black guy?
Yeah.
What if they do that?
That's a good question. I think the only one they can get away with doing it is Michelle Obama.
Yeah, I agree.
And I just don't see that she'd want to give up the good life that they're living. I mean, the Obamas have been able to turn their time in Washington and his time as president into a economic bonanza for themselves. I mean, they're almost billionaires now.
Wow. And
the scrutiny that she would invite, how they made all their money and all the different ways they've been living, it just seems to me that if you're her or him, I mean, do you really want to give that up? I mean, look what they're doing to Trump. Now, I don't think that anybody who runs for president on the Democrat side will be treated, I should say mistreated, the way Trump's been mistreated. But I'll tell you something, having lived through what I've lived through, 8 years in prison, John Anthony, for politics, not for crimes, it's an ugly business, and it's an awfully hard thing to put your family through. So if you're riding high like the Obamas are financially and you're about to become billionaires, that's a tough thing to give up to go into a world like that.
Yeah,
so I'd be surprised if she does it, but I think she's the only one they can get away with doing it with.
Yeah. How does the Supreme Court decision that's affecting the Madigan trial, I saw you respond to it, how will that affect what happened to you?
Well, we're talking to lawyers about that because they used an unlawful standard to get convictions at a second trial on me to turn legal conversations into fake crimes. I mean, there was the so-called sale of the Senate seat, John, was never a crime. It was a big lie. I was arrested on it. Turned out, after I was in prison for 3.5 years, the appellate court reversed it and said it was nothing more than, quote-unquote, routine political log rolling. And by the way, all of that started with Obama because he sent an emissary to me on election night in 2008 when he won, talk about a political deal. And we started discussing things we can do with Obama. Then they arrested me and did what they did and sent me to prison for 8 years, and he went to the White House for 8 years.
Release the tapes.
So that so-called, I'm sorry, John, but that sales accusation was a lie from the beginning. Yeah. Then they uphold 3 fundraising requests without the requisite quid pro quo, which is what you have to have, turn that into a crime. Otherwise, it's a First Amendment free speech. That's what the Supreme Court calls it. But I think the appellate court, and what I've learned about the court system is very politicized, very rigged, and we've seen now with the Democrat courts and prosecutors have done to Trump, it's what these Bush-appointed prosecutors did to me. And this is wrong, whether they do it to Democrats or Republicans. It shouldn't be a partisan issue. It should be an American issue.
Yeah. Did they interview Obama? Was Obama interviewed doing this court case?
He was, and his FBI 302s are still being covered up.
I want to hear those. Release the tapes.
And and when you're the guy that's being charged, you're entitled to have those, and they wouldn't let me have them. They're covering those up. It's very interesting to see what he says on those FBI 302s.
If you were Kamala Harris, who would you choose as a running mate?
I think their strongest running mate would be the governor of Pennsylvania, because Pennsylvania is a battleground state, a very significant state in this election, Josh Shapiro. So I think that ticket would be maybe their best possible ticket. One governor they should not pick, because he doesn't mash up well with the Republican vice presidential nominee, is J.B. Pritzker. J.B. versus J.D. draws the perfect contrast between what the Democrat Party has become today, a party of elitists, a party of Silicon Valley billionaires, Hollywood movie stars, and Wall Street financiers, and to put in the heir of a Hyatt Hotel fortune, who literally, frankly, has hardly worked a day in his life, J.B. Pritzker, who's bought everything that he has, and have J.B. matched up against J.D., comes from small-town America, who had a hard-scrabble upbringing, had difficulties with his mother, the dysfunction that he had to deal with, and then the fact that he went and joined the Marines and has lived the American dream the way he has. I think that contrast is so favorable to the Republicans and reflects the new Trump Republican Party, which has become the party of working people I think J.B. Pritzker, frankly, would be the worst candidate for Kamala Harris.
And then what about on the way out? Do you think, Biden is going to pardon his son Hunter?
I do. Absolutely. Either he's going to do it or he made a political deal. Here you go again, right? A political deal with Kamala Harris where one of the conditions for him to step aside is that she would agree to pardon his son. But I have to believe as a father, he has to figure out, he has to have made a deal or he's determined to pardon his own son. And, as a father with children, hard to argue against that. So I would be surprised if he doesn't do it.
Yeah, I agree. I think he does it.
All right, Rod Balgojevich, thank you so much for taking time. You can follow him on Twitter at @RealBalgojevich, and he joined us on our turnkey.pro answer line.
There's only one radio show in Chicago talking about today's biggest stories and telling you what they really mean. That show